Fort Benning's basic training had a way of crushing egos and building soldiers, but on this sweltering Georgia morning, something was different. The usual barking of drill sergeants mixed with an unusual tension as a new recruit quietly took her place among the cocky young men who thought they already knew what it meant to be tough. What none of them could have guessed was that the unassuming woman lacing up her boots had already commanded some of the most dangerous military operations in recent history, and that she was about to teach them all a lesson in humility they'd never forget. Captain Alex Ghost. Rivera adjusted her bootlaces with the same methodical precision she'd once used to plan midnight raids in Afghanistan. To the 22-year-old recruits around her, she looked like just another wannabe soldier. Maybe someone's older sister trying to prove a point, or a woman having a midlife crisis. At 34, she was definitely older than the typical basic training candidate, and her quiet demeanor made her an easy target for the kind of casual dismissal that young men specialized in. Welcome to those who left a trace. Before we dive into this incredible story of hidden identity and earned respect, tell me in the comments, what city in the world are you watching from today? And if you believe that real leadership doesn't announce itself, hit that subscribe button. What these recruits discover will blow your mind. Yo, check out Grandma over there, snickered Private Marcus Thompson, a kid from Detroit who'd been running his mouth since day one. Bet she's gonna wash out before lunch. His buddy Jake Martinez laughed, nodding toward Alex. Dude, what you even doing here? This ain't a fitness class for soccer moms. Alex heard every word but didn't react. She'd learned long ago that the loudest people in the room were usually compensating for something, and that real strength didn't need to announce itself. Instead, she focused on preparing for what she knew would be an interesting few weeks. See, Alex wasn't here because she needed basic training. She was here on a classified assignment that required her to blend in as a regular recruit while investigating reports of training irregularities and potential security breaches. Drill Sergeant Rodriguez emerged from the barracks like a force of nature, his voice carrying across the formation with the kind of authority that made grown men straighten their spines. Listen up, maggots. Welcome to hell. For the next 10 weeks, your sorry asses belong to me. The standard basic training intimidation routine began, with Rodriguez and his team of instructors methodically breaking down each recruit's civilian identity to build them back up as soldiers. Alex had been through this process herself 15 years ago, but she'd also been on the other side of it, training elite units whose selection standards made basic training look like summer camp. You! Rodriguez pointed directly at Thompson. Drop and give me 20. And wipe that smirk off your face. Thompson hit the ground immediately, his earlier bravado evaporating under the drill sergeant's glare. This was exactly the kind of reality check that separated the wannabes from the future soldiers. Rodriguez's eyes swept the formation and landed on Alex. What about you, Grandma? You sure you're in the right place? The retirement home is about 20 miles that way. Alex met his gaze without flinching. Yes, Drill Sergeant. I'm exactly where I need to be. Something in her tone made Rodriguez pause for just a fraction of a second. There was no fear, no nervousness, just calm confidence that seemed out of place in a basic training formation. But before he could analyze it further, he moved on to terrorize the next recruit. The first physical training session separated the wheat from the chaff pretty quickly. Thompson, who'd been talking the biggest game, started struggling halfway through the run. Martinez was puking behind a tree by the 2-mile mark. But Alex, she was running like it was a casual morning jog, her breathing steady and controlled while the younger recruits gasped for air around her. What the hell? Panted Kevin Walsh, a farm kid from Iowa who thought he was in pretty good shape. How's the old lady smoking all of us? Alex slowed her pace slightly to stay with the main group, but anyone paying attention could see she was holding back. Her running form was perfect, her endurance seemed unlimited, and she moved with the kind of efficiency that came from years of physical conditioning at the highest levels. During the break, Thompson was bent over trying to catch his breath when he noticed Alex wasn't even sweating hard. Hey, lady, you run marathons or something? Something like that, Alex replied, taking a sip of water and scanning the tree line out of habit. Her eyes moved in patterns that would have been familiar to anyone who'd spent time in hostile territory. Always checking, always assessing, always ready. The next phase was the obstacle course, and this is where things got really interesting. The recruits lined up to tackle a series of challenges designed to test their physical capabilities and mental toughness. Most of them approached it like a competition, trying to show off for their buddies and the instructors. Alex watched the first few recruits struggle through the course, noting their techniques and identifying where they were losing time or energy. When her turn came, she approached each obstacle with the kind of tactical thinking that turned physical challenges into mental exercises. She didn't just climb the rope. She ascended it using a technique that conserved energy and maximized efficiency. She didn't just crawl under the wire. She moved through it like liquid, her body positioned to minimize exposure and maximize speed. She didn't just scale the wall. She used a combination of momentum and leverage that made it look effortless. When Alex finished the course, Drill Sergeant Rodriguez was staring at his stopwatch like it was broken. Her time wasn't just good for a basic training recruit. It was good enough to qualify for special operations selection. "Rivera," Rodriguez barked. "Where'd you learn to move like that?" "I pay attention, Drill Sergeant," Alex replied simply. But Rodriguez wasn't buying the innocent act. He'd been training soldiers for 12 years, and he'd never seen a recruit move through obstacles with that level of sophistication. The technique was too polished, too professional, too familiar. "You been through this before, Rivera?" "No, Drill Sergeant. First time." Technically true, since this was her first time going through basic training under an assumed identity for an undercover investigation. But Rodriguez's instincts were telling him there was more to this story. The weapons training session that afternoon really raised eyebrows. Most recruits handled their first M16 like it was a foreign object, fumbling with the controls and struggling to remember the basic functions they'd been taught. Alex picked up her rifle and immediately performed a function check with the kind of muscle memory that took years to develop. "Damn," whispered Private Sarah Kim, one of the few other women in the platoon. "She handles that thing like she was born with it." Alex's shooting performance was even more telling. While the other recruits struggled to hit targets at basic qualification distances, Alex was putting rounds exactly where she wanted them with the kind of precision that suggested extensive advanced training. Drill Sergeant Williams, who was running the marksmanship portion, approached Alex after she'd finished firing. "Rivera, you been shooting before?" "A little, Drill Sergeant." "A little?" Williams looked at her target, which showed a grouping so tight it looked like it had been made by a machine. "This isn't a little, soldier. This is expert-level marksmanship." Alex just shrugged, but Williams was starting to connect dots that didn't add up. A recruit who ran like an Olympic athlete, moved through obstacles like a special operations soldier, and shot like a sniper instructor? That wasn't coincidence. That was professional training. That evening, as the recruits settled into their bunks of night, the conversations inevitably turned to Alex and her mysterious background. "I'm telling you guys," Thompson said, his earlier dismissive attitude replaced by grudging respect. "There's something weird about that chick. Nobody's that good at everything without some serious training." Martinez nodded. "My cousin went through Ranger School, and he says she moves like someone who's seen combat. Like real combat." "Maybe she's a cop or something," suggested Walsh. "That would explain the shooting and the physical fitness." But Sarah Kim, who'd been watching Alex more carefully than the others, had a different theory. "I don't think she's a cop. I think she's military. Like, real military. The way she carries herself, the way she scans rooms, the way she reacts to commands. That's not civilian behavior." What none of them knew was that Alex was lying in her bunk just a few feet away, listening to their speculation, while mentally preparing for the next day's challenges. Her investigation was proceeding smoothly, but maintaining her cover was becoming more difficult as her natural skills kept showing through the facade of a basic recruit. But what Alex didn't know was that someone else had been watching her performance with growing suspicion, and that tomorrow would bring a test that would either blow her cover completely or prove that she was exactly what she appeared to be, just an unusually talented recruit with mysterious past. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reveal the truth about who Alex Rivera really was, and what she was actually doing at Fort Benning. Day 3 of basic training brought hand-to-hand combat instruction, and Drill Sergeant Martinez was looking forward to watching the recruits learn some humility. Most of these kids thought they were tough until they actually had to fight someone who knew what they were doing. All right, maggots, Martinez shouted as the recruits formed a circle on the training mats. Today you learned that all your video game experience ain't worth shit in a real fight. We're gonna start with basic defensive positions and work our way up to actual combat techniques. Alex took her position in the circle, knowing this would be her biggest challenge yet. Hand-to-hand combat was where her advanced training would be hardest to hide. She'd spent years learning fighting techniques that were way beyond anything taught in basic training, but she needed to appear like a beginner without getting her ass kicked by overconfident recruits. Thompson, Martinez pointed to the mouthy kid from Detroit. You're up first. Show me what you think you know about fighting. Thompson swaggered into the center of the circle, flexing for his buddies. This is going to be easy, drill sergeant. I've been scrapping since I was 8 years old. We'll see about that. Rivera, you're his partner. Alex felt every eye in the platoon focus on her as she stepped forward. The recruits were expecting to see the older woman get demolished by Thompson, who was younger, bigger, and definitely more aggressive. Go easy on Grandma, Thompson, someone called out, drawing laughs from the group. Alex sized up her opponent with the kind of professional assessment that kept her alive through dozens of real combat situations. Thompson was strong but sloppy, aggressive but undisciplined. He'd rely on his size advantage and try to overwhelm her with brute force. Begin! Martinez shouted. Thompson came at Alex like a freight train, throwing wild punches with no technique whatsoever. To the observers, what happened next looked like a lucky accident. Alex seemed to stumble backward. Thompson overextended himself trying to follow up, and somehow Alex ended up behind him with his arm twisted in a position that made him tap out immediately. What the hell just happened? Thompson gasped, rubbing his shoulder. Alex helped him up with an innocent expression. I guess I got lucky. But Martinez had been watching carefully, and what he'd seen didn't look like luck. Alex's movement had been too smooth, too controlled, too perfectly timed. She'd read Thompson's attack, used his momentum against him, and applied a restraint technique with surgical precision. Lucky my ass, Martinez muttered under his breath. The training continued with Alex managing to win most of her matches through what appeared to be beginner's luck and natural athleticism. But each victory was actually a carefully calculated demonstration that showcased just enough skill to avoid suspicion while still maintaining her cover. Private Kim was starting to piece things together. Did you guys notice how she never seemed surprised by anything? Like, when Thompson charged her, she was already moving before he even threw the punch. Yeah, Walsh agreed. And did you see that arm bar she put on Martinez? That wasn't accidental. That was textbook technique. Their speculation was interrupted by the arrival of Captain Harrison, the company commander who'd been observing training from a distance. Harrison was a combat veteran himself, and he'd been watching Alex's performance with growing curiosity. Drill Sergeant Martinez, Harrison called out. I'd like to see a demonstration of advanced techniques. Use Rivera and Thompson. Martinez looked confused. Sir, these are basic recruits. They haven't learned advanced techniques yet. Humor me, Sergeant. I want to see how they handle increased pressure. This put Alex in an impossible position. If she performed too well, she'd blow her cover. If she performed poorly, she might get hurt, and worse, she might compromise her investigation by appearing weak. Harrison stepped closer to the mat. Rivera, I want you to defend against a full contact attack. Thompson, don't hold back. Thompson grinned, still smarting from his earlier embarrassment. You got it, sir. Time for some payback. Alex felt a familiar pre-combat calm settle over her as Thompson prepared to attack. This time he wasn't playing around. He was coming with everything he had, and she was going to have to use real skills to avoid getting seriously hurt. Thompson launched himself forward with a combination of punches that would have overwhelmed most basic trainees. But Alex wasn't most trainees. She slipped the first punch, deflected the second, and was already positioning herself for a counterattack when she caught Captain Harrison's eye. He was watching her with the kind of focused attention that meant he was evaluating her technique, not just her performance. And what he was seeing was making him ask questions that Alex couldn't afford to answer. Alex made a split-second decision. Instead of demonstrating the advanced combat skills that would have ended the fight immediately, she allowed Thompson to score a glancing blow that sent her stumbling backward. She went down hard, selling the impact while protecting herself from real injury. "Ouch!" Alex said, getting back to her feet and rubbing her jaw. "Nice one, Thompson." Thompson looked surprised that he'd actually landed a hit, but he played along. "Yeah, well, maybe now you'll show some respect." But Captain Harrison wasn't buying the performance. He'd seen enough real combat to recognize when someone was holding back, and Alex's defeat had looked more like a tactical withdrawal than an actual loss. "Interesting," Harrison said quietly. "Very interesting." After the hand-to-hand training ended, Harrison approached Martinez privately. "Sergeant, what's your assessment of Recruit Rivera?" Martinez looked uncomfortable. "Sir, she's unusual. Her physical fitness scores are off the charts. Her marksmanship is expert level, and she moves like someone with extensive training. But her records show she's a complete civilian." "Her records?" Harrison repeated thoughtfully. "What exactly do her records show?" "Basic background check came back clean. High school graduate, worked in an office, no military or law enforcement experience. But sir, between you and me, something doesn't add up." Harrison nodded slowly. He'd been having the same thoughts, and Alex's performance today had confirmed his suspicions that there was much more to this recruit than met the eye. "I want you to increase the pressure on Rivera," Harrison ordered. "Give her challenges that would break a normal recruit. Let's see what she's really made of." "Yes, sir. But what if she's exactly what she appears to be?" Harrison smiled grimly. "Sergeant, in my experience, when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. Rivera's hiding something, and I intend to find out what." As the recruits settled in for evening chow, Alex found herself increasingly isolated. Her superior performance was creating distance between her and the other trainees, who were starting to view her with a mixture of respect and suspicion. "Hey, Rivera," Kim said, sitting down across from her in the mess hall. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Where do you really learn to fight like that? And don't say it was beginner's luck, because that arm bar you used on Thompson was too clean to be accidental." Alex looked at Kim carefully. The younger woman was smart, observant, and not easily fooled. "I took some self-defense classes." "Self-defense classes," Kim repeated skeptically. "Right. And I suppose those same classes taught you to shoot like Annie Oakley and run like a marathon champion?" Before Alex could respond, Thompson and Martinez joined conversation. "We've been talking," Thompson said, "and we think you're not telling us the whole truth about your background." Alex felt the walls closing in around her cover story. "Guys, I'm just trying to get through basic training like everyone else." "Bullshit," Martinez said bluntly. "Nobody's that good at everything without serious training. You're either military law enforcement or something else entirely." The conversation was interrupted by Drill Sergeant Williams approaching their table. "Rivera, report to Captain Harrison's office immediately." Alex felt her stomach tighten. This was either routine questioning, or her cover was about to be blown completely. Either way, the next few minutes would determine whether her investigation continued, or whether she'd be explaining herself to people with much higher security clearances. As she walked toward Harrison's office, Alex mentally prepared for what could be the most important conversation of her undercover assignment. Because if Harrison had figured out who she really was, everything was about to change in ways that none of the recruits could possibly imagine. Captain Harrison's office felt smaller than it actually was, probably because of the tension crackling between him and Alex as she stood at attention in front of his desk. Harrison studied her with the kind of professional assessment that came from years of evaluating soldiers under pressure. "At ease, Rivera," Harrison said, gesturing to a chair. "Have a seat. We need to talk." Alex sat down, maintaining the posture and demeanor of a nervous recruit while mentally calculating her options. If Harrison had blown her cover, she needed to be ready to either maintain her story or reveal enough truth to continue her investigation. Your performance over the past 3 days has been remarkable, Harrison began, leaning back in his chair. Physical fitness scores in the 99th percentile, expert marksmanship on your first try, hand-to-hand combat skills that look suspiciously professional. That's quite a combination for someone with no military background. I've always been athletic, sir, Alex replied, and I grew up around guns. Harrison nodded slowly. Grew up around guns. On a farm, perhaps? Or maybe with a father who was military. Something like that, sir. Interesting. Because I ran your background through some additional databases this afternoon. Want to know what I found? Alex felt her pulse quicken, but kept her expression neutral. What did you find, sir? Absolutely nothing suspicious. Clean record, normal employment history. No red flags whatsoever. Which is exactly what I'd expect to find if someone was using a very good cover identity. The statement hung in the air between them like a loaded weapon. Harrison was essentially accusing her of being undercover, but he was doing it in a way that gave her room to maintain her story if she chose to. Sir, I'm not sure what you're implying. Harrison stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the training grounds where the other recruits were going through evening formations. Rivera, I've been in the Army for 18 years. I've served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and half a dozen other places that don't officially exist. In that time, I've learned to recognize certain types of soldiers. He turned back to face her. There are soldiers who learn skills through training and repetition. And then there are soldiers who've learned skills through necessity and survival. You move like the second type. Alex maintained her innocent expression, but internally she was impressed by Harrison's observational skills. I'm not sure I understand, sir. Let me be more specific. The way you scan rooms when you enter them. The way you position yourself to maintain visual contact with exits. The way you assess Thompson before your sparring match. That's not civilian behavior. Rivera, that's operational awareness. The captain was getting dangerously close to the truth, and Alex had to make a decision about how to respond. She could continue denying everything, but Harrison was clearly too experienced to be fooled by amateur tradecraft. Sir, even if what you're suggesting were true, what would it change? I'm here to complete basic training like any other recruit. Harrison smiled, and for the first time since she'd entered his office, he looked genuinely pleased. There it is. The first honest thing you've said since you got here. Alex felt her cover story crumbling, but Harrison's reaction was unexpected. Instead of hostility or suspicion, he seemed almost relieved. Captain Harrison, I'm not sure what you want me to say. I want you to tell me why someone with your level of training is pretending to be a basic recruit. Because Rivera, whoever you really are, you're not here to learn how to be a soldier. You already are one. The moment of truth had arrived. Alex could continue the charade and hope to salvage her investigation, or she could trust Harrison with enough of the truth to move forward. His behavior suggested he might be an ally rather than an obstacle. Sir, if I were to hypothetically be someone other than what my records indicate, it would be for reasons that I couldn't discuss without proper authorization. Harrison nodded approvingly. A good hypothetical answer. And hypothetically, if you were conducting some kind of investigation that required you to maintain your cover, I might be inclined to assist rather than interfere. Why would you do that, sir? Because, Rivera, I've been asking my own questions about some irregularities in training protocols and personnel assignments. If someone with your apparent qualifications is here investigating the same things I'm concerned about, maybe we're on the same side. This was the opening Alex had been hoping for. Harrison wasn't just suspicious of her. He was suspicious of the same problem she'd been sent to investigate. What kind of irregularities, sir? Training schedules that don't match official records. Equipment that disappears from inventory without proper documentation. Personnel with access to sensitive areas who shouldn't have that access. Little things that add up to bigger concerns. Alex made her decision. Sir, if I were hypothetically conducting an investigation, those would be exactly the kind of issues I'd be looking into. Harrison leaned forward, his expression serious. Then we have a problem, because I think someone's been watching you. Your performance has attracted attention from people higher up the chain than me. What kind of attention? The kind that asks questions about recruits who perform too well too quickly. I received a call this afternoon from Colonel Peterson. He wants to observe your training personally tomorrow. Alex felt a chill run down her spine. If a colonel was taking personal interest in her performance, her investigation could be compromised. What does Peterson want? Officially, he's interested in exceptional recruits who might be candidates for advanced training programs. Unofficially, I'm not sure, but his questions seem more focused on your background and your potential. This changed everything. Alex's cover was holding for now, but it wouldn't survive direct scrutiny from someone with Peterson's rank and access to classified databases. Captain Harrison, I need to ask you something directly. Do you trust me? Harrison studied her for a long moment. I trust that you're here for legitimate reasons, and that those reasons probably align with my own concerns about this base. Beyond that, I'm willing to see where this goes. Then I need your help to maintain my cover long enough to complete my investigation. What you need? Peterson can't be allowed to dig too deeply into my background. Can you convince him that I'm just an unusually motivated recruit? Harrison considered this. I can try, but it would help if I knew what you're really looking for. If I'm going to stick my neck out for you, I need to understand what's at stake. Alex weighed her options. Revealing too much could compromise her mission, but revealing too little might cost her the allies she needed to complete it. There are concerns about security breaches that could affect training protocols and personnel safety. I can't be more specific than that without authorization from my chain of command. Fair enough, but Rivera, or whoever you are, you need to know that if Peterson decides to investigate you personally, there might not be much I could do to protect your cover. I understand, sir. How much time do I have? Peterson's coming tomorrow morning to observe PT and weapons training. After that, it depends on what he sees and what conclusions he draws. Alex nodded grimly. She had less than 12 hours to either complete her investigation or find a way to deflect Peterson's attention without blowing her cover completely. Sir, there's one more thing. The recruits are getting suspicious about my performance. If Peterson talks to them, they're going to tell him that I don't fit the profile of a typical trainee. Harrison smiled slightly. Leave that to me. I think it's time for you to have a very public failure that makes you look more human. What did you have in mind? Tomorrow's PT test includes a timed run that I can adjust to make you look less superhuman. And during weapons training, you're going to have some equipment malfunctions that affect your performance. It was a good plan, but Alex knew it might not be enough. If Peterson was already suspicious, a few setbacks wouldn't necessarily convince him that she was just another recruit. Captain Harrison, thank you for this. I won't forget that you took a risk to help me. Don't thank me yet. Rivera, we still have to get you through tomorrow without getting both of us court-martialed. As Alex left Harrison's office, she knew the next day would determine whether her investigation succeeded or whether she'd find herself explaining to a colonel why she was conducting unauthorized intelligence gathering at his training facility. But what neither Alex nor Harrison knew was that Colonel Peterson had already made his decision about the mysterious recruit, and that tomorrow's observation would be much more than a routine evaluation. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reveal not just Alex's true identity, but the full scope of the security problems she'd been sent to investigate. Dawn broke over Fort Benning with the kind of oppressive humidity that made every breath feel like swallowing cotton. Alex laced up her boots knowing this would be the most dangerous day of her undercover assignment. Colonel Peterson would be watching her every move, looking for signs that she was more than just an exceptional recruit. The morning formation was tenser than usual, with Drill Sergeant Martinez glancing nervously toward the observation area where several officers had gathered. Alex could see Peterson among them, a lean man in his 50s with the kind of cold intelligence that suggested he didn't miss much. Dawn broke over Fort Benning with the kind of oppressive humidity that made every breath feel like swallowing cotton. Alex laced up her boots, knowing this would be the most dangerous day of her undercover assignment. Colonel Peterson would be watching her every move, looking for signs that she was more than just an exceptional recruit. The morning formation was tenser than usual, with Drill Sergeant Martinez glancing nervously toward the observation area where several officers had gathered. Alex could see Peterson among them, a lean man in his 50s with the kind of cold intelligence that suggested he didn't miss much. "All right, maggots," Martinez shouted. "Today we got some VIPs watching, so don't embarrass me more than usual. We're starting with PT, then moving to weapons qualification." As the recruits began their warm-up exercises, Alex noticed Peterson's attention focused directly on her. She deliberately stumbled during the jumping jacks and made her push-ups look more labored than they actually were. Thompson, who was struggling with the workout, noticed Alex's apparent difficulty. "Damn, Rivera, looks like the old lady's finally hitting the wall." "About time," Martinez added, breathing hard. "I was starting to think she was some kind of machine." The first part of Harrison's plan was working. By appearing to struggle with the basic exercises, Alex was making herself look more human and less suspicious. But Peterson wasn't watching her performance. He was watching her technique. And despite her efforts to appear average, her form remained too perfect, her movements too controlled, for someone who was supposedly struggling. The timed run was next, and Harrison had arranged for Alex to experience some equipment problems with her boots that would slow her down. As the recruits lined up at the starting line, Alex made a show of adjusting her laces and complaining about hot spots. "On your mark," Martinez called out. "Get set. Go." The recruits took off across the training grounds, with Alex deliberately pacing herself in the middle of the pack instead of pulling ahead like she had in previous runs. She even managed to look winded as they approached the halfway point. But Peterson was taking notes, and whatever he was writing, it wasn't about her running time. After the PT test, the recruits moved to the weapons range for their qualification shoot. This was where Harrison's plan would really be put to the test, because Alex's marksmanship skills were the hardest to hide. As Alex approached the firing line, Drill Sergeant Williams handed her a rifle that had been randomly selected from the armory. Harrison had arranged for her to receive a weapon with a slightly loose scope mount that would affect her accuracy without being obvious to casual observation. "All right, Rivera," Williams said loudly enough for Peterson to hear. "Let's see if yesterday's performance was just beginner's luck." Alex took the rifle and immediately noticed the loose scope, but she also noticed something else. Peterson had moved closer to the firing line and was now within earshot of any conversation. "The scope feels a little loose, Drill Sergeant," Alex said, playing her part in the deception. "Equipment's fine, Rivera. Maybe you just need to focus better." Alex settled into her firing position, making a show of struggling to get comfortable with the rifle. When she fired her first shot, the loose scope caused it to hit wide of the target, drawing murmurs from the other recruits. "What happened to the sharpshooter?" Thompson called out, causing some of the others to laugh. Alex fired 4 more shots, each one affected by the deliberately sabotaged equipment, resulting in a mediocre score that made her look like just another recruit having an off day. "Better luck next time, Rivera," Williams said, but there was concern in his voice that seemed genuine. As Alex cleared her weapon and stepped away from the firing line, she caught sight of Peterson walking toward her position. This was the moment she'd been dreading. Direct contact with someone who had the authority and resources to expose her completely. "Recruit Rivera," Peterson said, his voice carrying the kind of authority that made everyone nearby stand straighter. "I'd like a word with you." Alex felt every eye on the range focus on her as she followed Peterson to a quiet area away from the other recruits. This could be the end of her investigation, or it could be something else entirely. "Sir," Alex said, maintaining the posture of a nervous recruit. Peterson studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "Rivera, your performance over the past few days has been interesting. Inconsistent, but interesting." "I'm doing my best, sir." "I'm sure you are. Tell me, what made you decide to enlist?" It was a seemingly innocent question, but Alex could sense the trap hidden within it. Peterson was probing for inconsistencies in her cover story. "I wanted to serve my country, sir, and I thought the military would give me structure and purpose." Noble goals. And before enlisting, what was your occupation? I worked in an office, sir. Administrative stuff, mostly. Peterson nodded slowly. Administrative work. That must have been quite a change from what you're doing now. Yes, sir. Very different. I imagine it would be. Physical training, weapons handling, tactical exercises. All completely new experiences for someone with an office background. Alex could feel the conversation heading toward dangerous territory, but she maintained her innocent recruit facade. It's been challenging, sir, but I'm learning. Learning, Peterson repeated thoughtfully. Yes, I suppose you are. Tell me, Rivera, have you ever heard of something called muscle memory? The question hit Alex like a physical blow. Muscle memory was exactly what had been betraying her throughout basic training. The involuntary responses that came from years of professional military experience. I'm not sure what you mean, sir. Muscle memory is what happens when you perform an action so many times that your body does it automatically without conscious thought, like the way you performed that weapons function check on your first day of training. Alex's stomach dropped. Peterson had been watching her much more carefully than she'd realized. Sir, Peterson held up a hand, stopping her explanation. Rivera, I'm going to tell you something that might surprise you. I know exactly who you are. The words hit Alex like a thunderbolt. Her cover was blown completely, and now she had to decide whether to continue the charade or come clean. Sir, I'm not sure what you mean. Peterson smiled for the first time since she'd met him. Captain Alexander Rivera, Shadow Unit, currently assigned to an investigation of security irregularities at this facility. Alex felt her knees go weak. Peterson didn't just know she was undercover. He knew her real name, her unit, and her mission. How long have you known? Since about 10 minutes after you arrived. Your cover identity was solid, but not solid enough to fool someone with access to the right databases. Alex's mind raced through the implications. If Peterson had known from the beginning, why had he let her continue the investigation? Sir, why didn't you blow my cover immediately? Peterson's expression became serious. Because, Captain Rivera, the problems you're investigating are real, and they go higher up the chain than you might think. I needed to see how deep you could dig before someone tried to stop you. Someone tried to stop me? The call I made to Captain Harrison yesterday wasn't routine interest in an exceptional recruit. It was a test to see if he was part of the problem or part of the solution. Alex felt pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. And Harrison passed the test with flying colors. His efforts to protect your cover told me everything I needed to know about where his loyalties lie. Peterson gestured toward the range, where the recruits were continuing their weapons qualification. Captain Rivera, your investigation has confirmed some serious security concerns. But now we need to talk about what comes next. What comes next, sir? Now we move from investigation to action. And for that, I'm going to need you to drop the Recruit Act and start being the Shadow Unit Captain you actually are. As Peterson spoke, Alex realized that her undercover assignment had been just the beginning of something much larger and more dangerous than she'd originally been told. Sir, what exactly are we dealing with here? Peterson's expression became grim. Captain Rivera, we have reason to believe that classified training protocols and personnel information are being sold to foreign interests. Your investigation has helped us identify some of the players, but now we need to catch them in the act. And for that, you need someone with my particular skill set. Exactly. The recruit who's been struggling through basic training is about to disappear. Tomorrow, Captain Rivera reports for a classified assignment that will put her right in the middle of this espionage operation. Alex felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with transitioning from surveillance to direct action. What's the mission parameters, sir? There's a meeting scheduled for tomorrow night. Key personnel from several training facilities, some civilians with questionable connections, and at least one foreign intelligence operative. They think they're buying advanced training protocols and recruitment data. Where's the meeting? Off base, at a private facility about 20 miles from here. Security will be tight, and everyone attending will be vetted, except for one person. Alex smiled grimly. The new acquisition specialist who's been recommended by someone they trust. Precisely. Captain Harrison has already provided your credentials as someone with access to exactly the kind of information they're looking for. Peterson handed Alex a secure phone and a sealed envelope. Your extraction team will be standing by, but this is primarily a solo operation. Get close, identify all the players, document the exchange, and signal for backup when you have enough evidence to make arrests. Timeline, 18 hours. You'll be extracted from basic training tonight for medical reasons and briefed on your new identity. By tomorrow evening, you'll be sitting across a table from people who are selling out their country for money. As they walked back toward the range, Alex felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. The past few days have been challenging, but they'd been preparation for this moment. Sir, one more question. What happens to the recruits? They'll have questions about where I went. Peterson smiled slightly. As far as they'll know, Rivera couldn't handle pressure and was medically discharged. They'll probably spend the next few weeks arguing about whether she was really as good as she seemed. And the truth is that Captain Alexander Rivera, Shadow Unit Leader, is about to complete one of the most important counterintelligence operations of her career. The recruit they underestimated is going to take down a spy ring that's been operating under their noses for months. Alex looked back at the training facility where Thompson, Martinez, Kim, and the others were continuing their weapons qualification. They had no idea that the woman they'd dismissed as Grandma was about to disappear into a world of classified operations and dangerous adversaries. It's been an interesting few days, Alex said. It's about to get a lot more interesting, Peterson replied. Welcome back to the Shadow World, Captain Rivera. That evening, as the recruits settled into their bunks, Alex quietly gathered her few belongings. Her medical extraction was scheduled for 0200 hours, and by morning, she would be gone from their lives as mysteriously as she had entered them. Thompson noticed her packing. Hey Rivera, you okay? You look like you're getting ready to leave. Just organizing my stuff, Alex replied, maintaining her cover for a few more hours. You know how it is. Yeah, I guess. Hey, I want to say something. I was kind of a dick to you when you first got here. You're tougher than I gave you credit for. Alex looked at the young man who had mocked her as Grandma just a few days earlier. Thompson, you're going to be a good soldier. Just remember that strength comes in different forms, and the most dangerous people are often the ones you don't see coming. What do you mean? Alex smiled enigmatically. You'll figure it out. 3 hours later, a medical vehicle quietly entered the base and left with a recruit who had supposedly suffered a training-related injury. By morning, the bunk that had belonged to Rivera was empty, and the only trace of her presence was a memory of exceptional performance that had defied explanation. 6 months later, the recruits who had completed basic training would read a brief news report about the arrest of several military personnel and civilians involved in selling classified information to foreign agents. The article would mention that the investigation had been conducted by an unnamed special operations unit. Thompson, now a fully trained soldier himself, would remember the mysterious woman who had appeared in their platoon for just a few days. He would remember her impossible physical fitness, her expert marksmanship, and her calm confidence under pressure. And sometimes late at night, he would wonder if the old lady who couldn't handle basic training had actually been something else entirely. A ghost who had walked among them for just long enough to complete a mission none of them could have imagined. Because the most dangerous people were indeed the ones you didn't see coming. And sometimes they were hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to reveal that everything you thought you knew was wrong. Alex Rivera had taught them all a lesson in humility and respect that would last their entire military careers. But more importantly, she had shown them that real strength didn't announce itself. It simply got the job done, quietly and professionally, without needing recognition or praise. The Shadow Unit Leader they had underestimated had completed her mission and disappeared back into the classified world where legends were made in silence and heroes were never named in the history books. Sometimes the most important battles were fought by people no one would ever remember, in places that didn't officially exist, against enemies that were never supposed to be there. And sometimes those warriors hid among basic training recruits, teaching lessons about courage and competence while secretly protecting the very people who had dismissed them as unworthy of respect.